Good morning, everybody. It's
Morning,
Thursday.
John.
This is Lancaster Woodturners Coffee Hour, number 96, as it happens. I see 34 on screen right now. They keep clicking in. We'll probably get over 40 this morning, as we often do. Let me see. I have a little news. Lancaster Club April meeting is April 5th, which is next Tuesday night. We'll be a hybrid meeting. We'll be returning to our space at Kaufman Kitchens because we're in a COVID lull in Lancaster County. We've rearranged the space. We've got the lathe wired up. We've completely rearranged the space. It looks quite different now. So if you want to come and enjoy a hybrid meeting next Tuesday night, 7 o'clock, we'll be online at 6:30. If you want to stay home and watch on Zoom, you can do that too. Let me see, what else do I need to say? We have a special event coming up on April 14th. We'll have Jacques Vessery, longtime sculptor and artist from Maine, very well known in AAW circles. Will be showing us a slideshow and answering questions about his work. With this week's follow-ups, I'll be including some photos of Jacques' work so you can see what it looks like. He has the most amazing finishes, and he creates surfaces that look like feathers, they look like leaves. Really quite astonishing techniques he uses on these little miniature sculptures he makes. And he's quite willing to tell us how he does it and show us his tools. We're not going to have a demo. We're going to have a slideshow and a conversation. So that's on Coffee Hour for April 14th. Let me see. As you know, we use raise hand here, and this is a show and tell morning. Jim, would you put me back to gallery, please? Let me get the gallery view up. Yeah. So I have a short list already of people who are going to show us work this morning. If you'd like to join that list, use raise hand, which you'll find on the bottom of your screen on the reactions tab. And that will pop you up to the top of my screen. And I have a list of people who are going to show us stuff. But I'm going to start this morning with Michael Gibson, who's been bumped off a few times, and also Don Smith, who's been trying to show us a show. And they both got some fascinating stuff. So I'm going to, before I go to that, is there any questions, anything anybody wants to say, any announcements you need to make? As I've told other people earlier, I'm at my son's house in Connecticut, and I'm hosting this meeting on Wi-Fi rather than on a wired connection on a new laptop. And so we're going to see how that works. And so far it's working okay. I can see 30, I can see everybody on screen. I don't have a second screen. And I see 6 who have raised hand. Okay. Nobody's popping up with questions or urgent comments, so let's go over to Michael.
Yeah. Can you see that okay?
It's starting to, yes, we got it.
Okay. This is Alien Mitt. It was lured into the Cincinnati AAW Symposium exhibition. Being an Englishman, I'd never played baseball before. So the baseball that's in the middle there is a regulation size, and I had to find an old baseball and take it apart to get the shape of the
pattern
around the outside.
So that's turned and carved, is that right?
Yes, the actual outside body, it was all turned in pair, and then I used like string to pull those in a little bit. That's why it's an odd shape.
Ah, I see. And what's the
fingers in? Yeah.
How do you get such a flawless paint finish? What's under the paint?
That's just paint.
Okay.
I'm going to go through them fairly quick because I think I've got too many and I don't want to hold the whole program. So I'm going to go through them fairly quick.
Go for it.
This piece, it's called Around Autumn. It's just a sphere and then pierced and textured and pyroed. There's one of my teapots that's also clear, called Asian Tea.
Now, is that spout hollow all the way down?
No.
I was going to ask you, okay, well, how did you do that, huh?
That cost you extra.
A flexible drill.
Yeah.
This is a collaboration between Harvey Meyer and myself. This was lured into the exhibition in Atlanta symposium. Obviously, he done the beading, and I done the spout, the handle, and the lid. This is the black ash burl. The wire handles there are made from a coat hanger.
Nice.
So I like the way that turned out, that one. This is Brown Betty, which I really surprised myself. The most famous teapot in the world is the Brown Betty, and I decided to make one, and then I airbrushed the brown on, and I was amazed how close to ceramic it looked. But that's Bradford pear as well. I like the way that turned out as well. This piece was due into, I think it was no, it wasn't the Atlanta Symposium, I can't remember which one, but that was due into another AAW Symposium exhibition.
So these are turned and then pierced and carved, yeah?
Yeah, turned, then the negative space was cut out with an NSK, and then the veins in the leaves were done with pyro, and then it was textured in between, and then on top of that it was wasn't airbrush, but airbrush paints to get the full colors.
Yeah. It's amazing.
This one, I just finished a couple of months ago, and I've entered it into the exhibition, which is going to be held in Chattanooga, and I don't know the results of whether it's got in or not. That was made from one, I made a vase, then cut the leaves out, textured both sides, done the same thing, pierced them, pyroed, and textured in between, and then colored them. And at that time, they all balanced on this leaf at the bottom, but over time, the left-hand side has just sunk. It is about 1/4 of an inch off the table now.
Michael, how long have you been turning?
Only about, well, I say only about between 12 and 15 years.
And did you start in the States or did you start and learn in Britain?
No, I started over here basically when I retired. The first couple of years I was still working, so, and I'd done a foolish thing. I didn't take any lessons, which I really regret now. I just wasted 2 years, but anybody that's starting to turn, I advise them to take lessons. You make all the mistakes, but I work through it. But having worked with tools all my life, I think I have a little bit of a jump with most people when they come from different fields. This is another sphere called cranny. That's also Bradford pear, and then it's just pierced.
Huh.
This piece, I think it's about 12 inches tall and turned very thin, obviously, and the same technique.
So what explains your fascination with reproducing leaves?
I keep looking at other leaves, try and turn. I like things that are very realistic, and I find the maple leaf is easiest, or I think looks the best compared with like an oak leaf or something, you know.
You're certainly getting a very realistic leaf, that's for sure. It's amazing.
I think this is a collaboration between myself and my ex-wife Cynthia Gibson. Obviously, I turned the teapot, and she done the pyro work.
It's fantastically good.
Yeah, I really like that one. And I think there's another one there. This is the other one. I really like this one.
That's also fantastically good.
Yeah. Yeah, her work is very good, very good.
That's amazing.
This one, I use the same technique, except what I did with this one, I made 2 vases, and to get some more movement into the leaves, as you can see, these curl over and go in different directions. This piece has been jeweled into the exhibition that's in Chattanooga. I forgot what was it called? I can't remember, but it got jeweled in, so I'm very happy with that. So you can see this live.
We saw this a couple of months ago. You showed us this a couple of months ago too, I think, this one.
Yes, I've got one that's similar, but it hasn't got such movement in the leaves. This one's now up in Minneapolis and Paul, the AAW headquarters, where it will be photographed by Tib, and it'll go into the catalogue one, and it'll also mostly be in the AAW journal.
Is that 2 spears?
Could you say that again?
Is that 2 spears?
Did you start by turning 2 spheres, or were they vases?
Oh, 2 vases I turned with a lot of angles in it.
Okay.
So you could get the shapes you want out of the vases.
Yeah.
I'm okay. How about yourself?
This one,
Well, I'm glad.
all the black hair that you can see is pierced,
There's this guy
and
from
the inside's turned black to give the impression that she's got black hair, which I really like, but you have to explain it to people. From a photograph, it looks like it's painted on there. This one's in the Georgia Museum of Art in Athens. It's made from pear, and obviously made it like a tin cup. Or enameled cup, I should say. If you look at the little chips, before I put the blue on, I painted it black. And when I was trying to take some of those white spots off, I realized that it looked like it had been chipped. So all the way around, like on the bottom there, where it would get hit constantly, I put a few chips in and made it even more realistic.
That's remarkable.
This one was jeweled into, let me see.
Oh, well, look at that.
Traces. This one was in the Traces exhibition, which I think was in Atlanta. That's pyro work that I did, and the white stuff is like it's sort of like sheetrock mud, but it's like a plasticky stuff. I found it in Ace Hardware, and I thought I'd try it, and then I smoothed the areas out to make, or put it around the leaves that I'd burned on there. This one was jeweled into, in Phoenix. It was jeweled into the exhibition, the AAW Symposium. And if you look, the top part there is a made from a teapot, and the other, or the fancy work on it, I think I got the next picture. Yeah, this is what it looks like. It's called From the Ashes. That's all airbrush work. If you go back, you can see it again.
Amazing.
And that also got the People's Choice. So I was very happy with that because it gave me some money.
Yeah.
This is another teapot. It's called High Tea. And you can see there's a little heart in the handle.
Those are astonishing.
This is another pierced tube. That's about 12 inches long and about 3 inches in diameter, and a couple of herons. It was the hardest part was actually turning it, because it was like a foot long, and it's okay the first 6 inches getting it in, but when you start to get to the bottom, it gets really complicated.
Yeah, it's very difficult to turn cleanly deep inside like that. Yep.
Yeah, and it's a hole at the other end. It's just a tube, which I hadn't thought of when I started, but I managed to get around it.
I think if I was going to make that, I'd make it as a tube and cut the bottom out and hollow from both ends and then glue the bottom back in.
Yeah, I could have done it that way. This is my latest teapot that I made, Live, Laugh and Love.
What wood is underneath that?
That's Bradford pear as well. This is a collaboration I done with Louis Van der Koethe. I think that's how you pronounce his name. French Canadian, lives in Ottawa. I turned the teapot and he done all the artwork on it.
Amazing.
That's a let me see if I've got it written. Just a natural edge barrel teapot. I can't remember the wood now. I sort of quite like the way that turned out, keeping the bowls all together there.
It's quite ambiguous.
Oh, these I teach little kids one day a week at school here for kids and their parents in crisis, and they were having our club was having a show for the charity for that school. It's the most amazing place. That's another whole story, but I made these plates for charity. Oh, this is another enamel teapot that I made. It's also got some chips. This piece is currently in an exhibition in Athens, and it won got first place in like 3D. It's called Spider Tea. I did the artwork. The spider is done with India ink pens. That's a maple. No, I think it's a maple that was stained, and I called this tea stains.
That's a very good use of the coloring in the wood.
Yeah, it turned out beautifully. This was a collaboration with John Myerdot, who lives in Hawaii. His pyro work is unbelievable.
Michael, how
Yeah.
do you attach these handles and stuff? It looks so seamless.
It takes a long time. The spout and the handle, just getting that fitting, that's what's the time-consuming part about it. And it is held in there with a dowel, which doesn't go through to the inside. It's just as smooth on the inside as it is on the outside. It's a long process.
It's beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, that's amazing. I could show you another half a dozen shots of that, and it's really amazing piece.
That's astonishing artwork.
Teapot that I made, and I done the pyro work, and you can see it's textured between the leaves as well. It's called tea leaves, that piece. This was during into the merging exhibition, the AA symposium. I can't remember where it was now. It didn't come up on where the name of it is. And this one won the Masters Award, so I was very pleased with that piece as well. This is 3 feathers, turned a very thin vase and then cut the feathers out and then pyroed them.
Wow.
Yeah, that was it wasn't too bad actually.
That's
This
astounding.
piece was cured in Kansas, the waves of grain. If you look at the actual kernels, they're hollowed out as well. Can you see my pointer?
Yeah. So
Okay,
those are
well,
carved. Those are carved or low relief. They're like carved into the
Yeah.
surface. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's beautiful.
Actually,
Amazing.
it's funny. I put 3 pieces in, and I thought this was the worst piece, and they picked that one out of the 3.
It
But,
shows
I mean, as long as you get in, I don't care.
one is never the best judge of one's own work.
This is was a plate, and then the same technique as I told you before. That's it.
Okay.
Wow.
Thank you.
That is amazing. Thank you, Michael.
Very impressive.
Nice work, Michael. Very nice.
Fantastic work.
I have a question about your piercings. How thin a wall do you like before you start your piercings?
Oh, the thinner the better. I try and make mine 3/32. I was going down to a 16th, but when you do it on a like a hollow form, I found that the end grain was collapsing. And then I turn all my teapots and hollow formed end grain to stop a little bit of movement. But I found when I got it to a 16, the tops were collapsing. So I stopped doing that. What I've done is made it thicker. So 3/32 is roughly what I aim for.
Amazing.
Yeah, great work. The one teapot, it looked like it was a self-portrait. Was that a self-portrait?
A teapot?
Yeah, the comical one where they were pouring the tea into.
No, that was from the story Alice in Wonderland, is it?
There's a collaboration with somebody, but I haven't been able to catch the name.
It was John Mydock. He lives in Hawaii, and his pyro work is incredible. He's a very, very good turner as well. He's very, very well known, but you don't see a lot of his work quite often.
Michael, tell me, these all began on a lathe?
Yes, they're all turned, yeah. Everything's turned.
Amazing, amazing.
Well, thank you.
If I can crowd in here, I'm the proud owner of a little Japanese teacup from Michael and Cynthia from St. Paul Symposium, World of Woodturners Exchange.
Is it one of the little dolls? The
Yeah.
Koethe dolls? Yeah, she does a beautiful job on those.
Astounding. Any more questions for Michael?
Yeah, Michael, I like this spider teapot you showed with a spider sitting on it. Is that just a three-dimensional or a painting to make it look three-dimensional, or is there anything added? And is it really three-dimensional, like
It's a painting.
legs added or something like that?
It's a painting all the way down.
Yeah, that's really great. It's amazing. If you see it on the photo, it looks like the spider is sitting on there and the legs are in the air.
The trick is the shadows. The shadows are very beautifully done. That's what makes it look like that.
Yeah, great work.
Thank you.
This might
Anybody
be
else?
Mike and I in the same club, and I talked him into entering a record power contest a few years ago in the Masters category, in which the club won a record Coronet Harrow lathe and 2 chucks from Record Power and every jaw set they had, and a shop vac or dust collector.
Mike, back up a bit. We're just seeing the top of your head. Now we see you. Yeah. Anybody else? And I'm going to say thank you very much, Michael. That was a very inspiring show, and it's going to be hard to top.
Well, thanks for allowing me to showcase some of my work. I had so many that I could show you. I thought I can't go on, or it'd be all. I had to stop myself from looking at more, you know.
Well, I asked you for a highlight reel, and that's what you gave us. So there you go.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And I'm going to go to, I see all the raised hands, but I'm going to go to Don Smith because he's been holding this for a couple of weeks. He's got a demo he wants to show us. Don, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm fine, John.
Okay, I'm going to spotlight you for everybody. Go for it.
Good afternoon, everyone. From
Show us
England.
what you're making first, and then
First
take it
of all,
through it.
I'm making that bowl, which I showed right at the end of last week's coffee morning.
Hold it up because some of us weren't here last week. Hold it up so we can see it. Yep, that's it. Just hold still. And turn it over. Turn it over. So it's got concentric circles on one side and radius is on the other side, making a basket pattern.
Yes.
Okay.
Ribs and making it like a trellis.
Okay.
Right. So the first thing I do on my blank is I draw a circle, which is the size of that woodchuck or piece of wood there, which is on a plate.
Yep.
Once I've done that, I hot glue that piece onto the blank, and there it is with the plate. It's mounted on the lathe, and I don't true up the edge. I just start turning straight away because to turn the edge, you're wasting time. And I'm now turning the back of the bowl to shape it. And that's my chucking point for later on. And there we are, just turning the base.
What's that tool you're using? A bowl gouge?
That's a 5/8 bowl gouge.
Yeah.
And there's the base with the foot. That foot will be removed later on. I've turned it round and you can see the little fillets of glue still on the face where I've removed the original faceplate. Turning out the inside. Now, when you come to the inside, you need to leave this boss on. And the boss is on this particular bowl, which is 8 inches, is a 3-inch piece of boss. It's approximately a third of the depth left and shaped slightly because it's this edge here that is important for the next part of the operation. And I've just sanded it with the pad and sandpaper on a cordless drill to give me a finish to start the next process. Now this is the tool that I use. It's a small mini like Dremel tool. It has a cutter and it is fitted up with a stop, a depth gauge. And that's a slide to make it work. A little bit closer view of what it is the cutter and the depth gauge.
Is that depth gauge a bearing? It looks like a bearing.
It is a ball bearing, or rather it is a bearing on a piece of bent aluminium. So when you go in and you're using it, this will run around the edge of the bowl, the face of the bowl as you're doing the operation. Now that's that we set up. I've got my platform with my slide and pointing up to the wood. Now that piece that I said was most important is because that is the end stop for coming in to start your cut with your cutter. And if by using that all the way around, the edge of this rib will always be the same distance in the circle. You haven't got to draw a circle, you've got a definite fixture.
It's unambiguous, you can't miss it, yep.
And then you're cutting away and you go up to the edge and you cut through so that you end up.
Now you're indexing that for each cut, is that right?
That's right, yes. It's I've got set up a new index on the back of my lathe. Luckily the shaft was hollow, so I was able to tap into that hollow and fixed on a faceplate from a chuck that had the 24 points on it, and I was able to use that instead of my one that came with the lathe that was getting rather worn.
And the board that was clamped on the platform is a stop for the Dremel, right? It bangs into that at the end of the cut.
Sorry, say that again, John.
We can see the diagonal line on the lower left is a stop for the router, for the Dremel tool. Is that right? It stops.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a stop here, so that I can't go any further on this dimension.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I go back one, there's the stop.
Yes.
Clamped on so that the sledge stops up against that absolutely flush. Therefore, you know you've gone into the same depth all the way around the perimeter of the bowl.
Got it.
And there's the 24 ribs cut into it. In fact, that's the old bowl, not the new one, because this was a mistake. But then it's reversed on that chucking point that you put here. You put your chucking point on this middle boss so that you can now turn it round. Went the wrong way. When you turn it round, I use a small parting tool and I just kiss the positions of where I want to go. And I use a parting tool, a 1/8 parting tool, and I use it on both sides so that you're cutting clearance as you go through. And the light you see here is a sewing machine light with a magnetic base. And that is fixed to the head of stock, lit up, and then I slowly go through with the parting tool until the light is showing. I stop the lathe and check to make certain I'm parallel. If I'm not, I just adjust the angle of the parting tool till all the little ribs are now clear. And I do that through the bowl. You'll notice I have a little piece of plywood here with a center spot. That's for picking up and making certain you're center without damaging the base. And there she is. This is the one that I was doing and was damaged. And the one that I've just shown you, this one is perfect. And the reason for that is, and that's why I changed the end of my indexing point, because it came undone as I was turning this piece and messed it up for me. So even now I make mistakes, but there it is. I've seem to have missed a photograph somewhere. No, right. What I've done is, oh, this is it. I've mounted it, I've taken it off the lathe, I've reversed it again so that I can come back to the center, and I've removed the whole of the center boss from the bowl. I've resanded it by hand very gently on a very low speed, and then I have polished it, which I'll show you in a moment how I did that. I then turned it round and I put it onto my button jaws, and I've removed the whole of this shucking point here.
I heard somebody trying to ask a question. Is there a question out there?
It's sycamore, the wood?
No, it's lacewood. Okay. London pine, lacewood.
Is London plane and lacewood the same wood?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And there's the base being removed. And then that's the two bowls. Now, the way I polished them is the same on both faces, except on the back, I use a toothbrush to get into the slots whilst it's revolving. With the inside of the bowl, of course, I use the toothbrush, but static, so they can run down between the ribs. And then I just polish with Renaissance wax over the top of the wood. I don't use any sander sealer, because I found that if you do and it gets into the rib and it runs slightly, you could end up with a module of sander sealer in there. The only other way would be to use a cellulose spray. And that's the bowl.
Fantastic.
Any questions on that? It's very simple, very quick, but it is that product that comes up like that.
Wait a second. I'm going to end your share so we can see that. Hold on a second. I'm going to stop the share.
Fine.
Okay, now hold the bowl up again so we can get a good look at it. That's amazing. Any questions for Dawn?
Very nice, Michael.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
I would say we ought to give Don and Michael Gibson a round of applause here.
Nice
Yeah.
job, everybody. Really good.
Very,
Thank
very,
you. Thank
very
you.
Very
excellent. job.
nice.
I'll do something else again in a few weeks' time for you.
That'll be great. That was a lovely one.
I would like to see the your setup. The jig that you've created is very interesting also at some point. How you create, how you make that jig, what it looks like.
Which jig's that?
You mean the platform that the rider?
The platform, yeah.
It's just
Oh,
a platform. Yeah.
Oh, that's quite simple to tell you. It's a piece of laminated piece of wood, about 10 inches square. I turned a pillar that fits my banjo, and on the other side of it, when I've got it in the banjo, there's another piece of wood which I turned, which is fitted into the base, so that whenever I put it onto the lathe, I cut it so that when I put it in and the second piece hits the back of the banjo, that's the height. And every time I put it in, it comes out to the same height, to the center of the piece of the bowl that you're turning.
Yeah.
So
the
every
cutter
time
has
you
to be at center height for this to work. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to adjust the height. You just put it on, bang, and you're in the same position every time. But if you want to see it, I'll do a quick photograph next time and just very quickly show you it as a photograph.
Yeah, well, everybody always wants to see that. So yes, please do.
Yeah.
And, yeah. Any other questions for Don?
Oh, by the way, the cutters are 6mm cutters, and I use two types, either the one that's a full spiral or one that's just got two blades.
Yeah.
And you can get them off Axminster in a pack of 10, and the pack of 10 was £8.99, which is what, $12?
Yeah, for 10 cutters.
Donald, are your cutters straight and down, or are they like the router cutter where they push the gypsy up or down?
It's a straight cutter and straight flat bottom. And it will very gently, if you're going very gently with it, you can route the slots on the inside very nicely. But you want to take it slowly, not to try to get it all in one go. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
In a moment, I'll pop out and I'll get it. And just before we finish, if John will come back, I'll show you the cutters that I've got.
Okay.
By holding them up. Is that it?
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Kathy Gower's next. What do you have today, Kathy?
Well, Jeff showed you his bunnies last week, so I couldn't let him outdo me, so I had to work on some bunnies. So there's a whole bunch of bunnies. They've been multiplying.
They're bunnies. Did you turn the eggs too?
No, I painted the eggs. Each one of my grandchildren, I painted a rabbit and put their name on an egg. So
you're a very talented lady, Kathy.
Oh, thank you.
That's very cute. Questions for Kathy? Comments for Kathy?
Is it very hard to turn chocolate?
Very nice.
Sorry?
I said, is it very hard to turn chocolate?
Kathy, are the ears pieces of leather?
Yes, the ears are leather.
Very nicely done.
Thank you.
What are the whiskers?
Wire. It's just thin black wire.
Very thin. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, very good.
Thank you.
Other questions for Kathy? That's terrific.
Thanks.
Okay, Bert, what do you have today?
Okay, well, just real quickly, I just got one picture to show here. There should be. That. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, so yesterday, this is my efforts yesterday. One little post is standing up there on the back rail. That was a leg for an heirloom chair some local people wanted. They make them for their grandkids. And I made them a set 2 years ago. I made them 10 of these little legs. And yesterday they came with a board and they wanted to make a bunch more chairs. So there's 28 duplicates. Took me about 3.5 hours.
Now, did you turn those with a duplicator or by hand?
All by hand. I just had that one sitting crossways in front of me across my lathe, and I made a story stick with 3 pencil marks where I could where I knew where the profiles were. And the first one took me 20 minutes, and my muscle memory came into play, and I just cranked them out. It's alder, so it turns really, really easy. And they all came in with about 1/16 of an inch of each other on any of the details. Now, the beauty of it on a chair, if they're a little bit different, well, nobody really notices because they're far enough apart.
Well, that's what makes it look good. But when you use that story stick, what are you marking? The high points, the deepest cuts, what are you choosing to mark?
I choose to mark right where the tenon. I put a pencil mark there, and I put a pencil mark where the groove is between the features. And then on the cove portions, I just take my pencil and just make a big black pencil mark where the cove is, just so I know where to start and just go for it. So there's only 3 pencil marks on it. And and once your muscle memory gets into play, I used a miniature roughing gouge for doing the shaping, and the wood just flies off. And a spindle gouge and a miniature roughing gouge, and you're in business.
When you've made those 3 marks, do you cut in with a parting tool or a point of askew to establish the bottom of the groove as the first step?
I do a V cut on the pencil marks on the grooves, and then I use the skew as to turn the partial bead into the V cut on both sides, and then that gives me enough room for the little roughing gouge. I don't have to worry about trying to do a real nice bead, and if I need to touch it up, I use a spindle gouge, but most of it's been done with a miniature roughing gouge.
Very impressive. Questions for Bert?
Is this a labor of love, or do you get paid for this?
This one actually got paid for. They wanted so many, and I would have done some if they only needed a half a dozen or something. I'd have done it that way, but they wanted so many, and they were adamant they wanted to pay for it. So yeah, I charged them $12.50 a piece. And they were more than happy. They were tripping over each other to pay for it. So,
well, what do you guys think about that price? Is that cheap or high?
I would have said it was cheap.
I would have charged them about $20 a piece.
Well, I took a page out of Richard Raffin's book on this one, and he said that he generally tries to price his stuff by the number of minutes on the lathe. And I was turning these out in less than 10 minutes each. So I thought, I mean, it's a labor of love at the same time. So, I mean, it's going to a good cause. So I thought, hey, that's a fair enough price. I'm happy. They're happy. They provided the wood.
Bert, when you said a miniature roughing gouge, the roughing gouge is my favorite tool. How wide is it?
It's a Robert Sorby miniature set. So it's only, the roughing gouge is probably 1/2 inch in diameter. It's just a little tiny one, but it is, for this kind of work, it is so slick because it's got no vibration, and it doesn't have, it's got a square end on it. And if I just used a regular spindle gouge, I end up following the bevel, and especially on soft wood, it makes too many tool marks. But with that roughing gouge, it just seems like it just works for this this kind of work. It worked just beautiful. And because you can go at 45 degree with a roughing gouge, it's almost like a skew. Yeah. It's almost like a round skew, so you can go into these coves real easy without having to worry about a catch.
Yeah.
I have a 3/4 inch roughing gouge that I would have used for that same way. Exactly.
Yeah.
Other question for Bert? Thank you, Bert. Let's see, Kai, you're next.
Yeah, thanks. I've got 2 little films that I would like to share. Okay. I think 2 weeks ago, we talked about organizing tools in the workshop, and on one of the photos there was my lathe, and Jim asked about the funny tailstock mechanism. So I will show how it works. Try to do it quickly. And another thing, how to measure depth or drilling depth. That's yeah, in here as well. So I put a metal rule onto magnets that are fixed to the lathe, and then I line up the depth that I want to drill with the end of the quill here, and the drill bit is just touching the surface into which I want to drill. So, and then I start drilling until the end of the quill matches with the end of the metal ruler. So it's exactly, in my case, it's 2 centimeters that I drill here. You have to eyeball it, and it's not 100% exact, but for most cases it's okay. Of course, if you've got a scale on your, sorry?
It's not a hard stop, it's just an eyeball stop.
Yeah, it is just an eyeball stop. And of course, if you've got a scale on your quill, you don't need that. But mine hasn't got a scale, so it's useful. So I show how that works. And I just move the hand wheel for drilling as you usually do. Okay, and that's why I stop then when these two match. I hope you didn't. Yeah, sorry.
That's an extraordinarily long Acme screw out the back end of that. Does that quill actually extend that far?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. So it's got a long way. You can move the quill, which is very useful. Yeah.
That's why it has the lever.
Yeah.
That's why it has the lever action as well.
Yeah, yeah. So I just hope you didn't get seasick, because I had to hold the camera in one hand and then move the hand wheel with the other hand. So yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I still don't understand what the lever's for. The lever action in the back.
Mm-hmm. That's it. I have to stop this share, and then I've got a second little video for you. Just have to pick the right one here, and that should show the lever action. So you can unlock the quill here by turning the lever, and that should be shown here. You just unlock it, and then you can push it back.
Oh, you're moving the whole quill out. Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah, and then you can move the hand wheel, and the hand wheel acts as a kind of stop how deep you drill as well.
Well, that's neat. Okay, okay, thank you. Also, the drill bit you're using is a self-feeding brace and bit kind of drill bit. It's got a screw on the tip of it, right?
No, it hasn't. It's just got a point. It's got a point for drilling into wood, but it's got no screw.
Okay.
So, and this mechanism works best for smaller drills. So, for example, for the one I'm using here, if I've got big Forstner drill bits, I rather lock the quill and use the hand wheel, because I've got more force or power for moving it. Okay, so that's it.
That is very interesting. Has anybody managed to rig up anything like that on a lathe? Because that would be very helpful.
You may see it soon.
So that's a challenge then.
I would say so. I saw that on an old, big old pattern maker's lathe years ago, and I never saw it again. Only once. And at the time, I didn't really understand what the point was, but now I see.
Yeah, that's an old lathe as well, made in the 60s, I guess. I bought it secondhand.
I have a one-way drill wizard that works with. I mean, it's similar, but it's a drill wizard. You mount a drill, and it's got the lever on it for. And I use it with my indexer. Works a treat.
I really appreciate your ruler depth gauge. That seems to make a lot of sense, and it's very simple, and it looks like an easy way to do it.
Yeah,
it works.
Works great. Okay, right. Thank you. So I put my hand down again.
More comments for Kai? Okay. Bruce, you're the cleanup man. What do you got?
I have two simple pieces that were made from magnolia, which was new to me. And unlike some of the other colorings, this is all natural color. And even including some green that appears to have persisted. So I assume it was a fungal add that was really a nice addition to this.
Now, this was, when you say magnolia, you mean actually southern magnolia and not tulip poplar?
I do mean southern magnolia. I got it out of Florida, yes.
Cool.
And this piece is about 6 inches wide and 6 inches high and single turn. And as I got to the rim at about 1/8 of an inch, I was trying to see through it with light, and I still couldn't see through it at all. So I kind of said, I don't think I'm quite that good with a bowl gouge, and I'm going to do it less than 1/8 of an inch all the way down 6 inches. So I pulled out my hollowing rig and cheated on the inside. But I think that worked out really well. And it still lost maybe 10% of its weight after I finished it. But otherwise, it really hasn't moved in shape at all. I have some other pictures of it. Let's see.
Beautiful wood. It's amazing.
Yeah, it really is an amazing piece of wood. And I was fortunate enough to get several blanks of spindle blanks and a couple of bowl blanks of the same wood. But it's in here, this picture, you can see the green in the front. There's some light green here and then a darker green piece, which actually persists out through the piece.
You think that green is going to persist, or will it fade out?
Well, if it's Chlorosiboria, I think it will stay. And that's kind of what it's looking like. It hasn't moved at all in several weeks. And I guess time will tell, but I think it's probably going to persist.
Nice.
And then from the same wood, I did a bowl, and yet the wood, the piece of wood was quite different than the first one, and the feather came out as a surprise to me as a crotch. But still, the coloring was just amazing of this magnolia, and you can see there's just a little bit of spalting in this piece, not a lot of spalting really, and neither of them were punky at all, which was a real big plus. It is fairly soft though, if I had to say, for what the wood is. But it just, and you can see the crotch from the other side. I just got it nicely. And I'm not big on putting bases on bowls, but it seemed to work on this one. And this one's only about 2.5 inches deep, which is the other reason I kind of wanted something to push it up a little bit.
So there's no paint on that? That's purely all in the wood?
That's all wood. There is no paint on anything.
Hey, Bruce, that's a really fast growing tree. Did you have any issues with, I guess, fuzziness, or, I mean, how did you, or was it not an issue with like so many other fast growing trees?
The wood is soft, and tear out is kind of a given, but it's still finished up pretty well. Sharp tools and still a lot of sanding, but I think it still looked pretty well. But you definitely have some porosity and some tear out that you just can't avoid at all. But as you see it, it's just got a couple coats of oil on it, and it's fine.
Nice.
Looks nice.
Great piece of wood. Yeah. And very nice shape. Fits.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Bowman, what do you have?
I got the last piece that I turned on my Comet. Osage orange really makes the shop all yellow. I mean, I'm not showing photos today, but it's yellow all over the place. And I'm interested in seeing how fast this thing will change. I did put Mahoney's walnut oil on it. It was roadkill for me. I go over to Home Depot, buy a road that they've been clearing off for development. And I thought there was a tree that they trimmed right on the edge of the road that was Osage orange. And so I stopped one day, and sure enough, it was. It was not beyond me to lift a piece into my trunk. And this is what it is. I got to get used to my new camera here. I love defects or whatever, the wood stuff. I'm also proud of this one because I went back and turned it. It's too bad you can't feel it. I got it really smooth and all that. That just makes me feel good. So, yeah.
You say you love the defects, and I'm looking at, before you said that, I'm looking at that and saying, geez, was there not a clean piece of wood in there somewhere that you could have turned?
I picked this one. I'm sorry.
That's the piece I would have gone to the hardwood pile with.
This stump was cut about 2 months ago because I go by there a lot. I'm starting to see a lot of cracking. This thing's probably just going to crack like crazy. It was still pretty wet, and I didn't bag it or anything. I put walnut oil on, and
well, there's no pith in that. There's no pith in it, is there? No.
Well, see, not really. Yeah,
it might not.
I love when you can get pieces of the bark on either side. Yeah, I'm kind of crazy. Yeah, I know. Yeah. I had to use a little black epoxy to make sure that crack didn't get crazy.
Oh, that is open up a bit. Yeah, that is a pith. That's a pith down there. That is going to open up, I think.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I'm watching to see when it changes. By the way, I am drying a piece of this Osage orange to see, and then I'm going to put it in epoxy to make a wine stopper and see how long it takes for it to change buried in epoxy and see the yellow, how long it stays.
Well, you'll find out. It'll be, I bet it's not very long.
Really? I thought buried in epoxy might keep it safe.
I guess you'll find out. Any questions for Jim?
I have a question about the pith cracking. My experience is regardless whether the pith is there or not, the cracks will still come from where the pith was, with the pith not even being there. Other people have that experience?
You got to remove it a little further away from it, I think. You got to get further into sound wood.
You have to look right. Some people get away with it.
Yeah.
I figure wood grows like that. Why do we make it perfect?
Well, I remember Tay Frid telling me one time that he never had any trouble with wood moving when he began woodworking because he didn't know about it. And once somebody taught him that wood always moves, everything moved, and it all came apart. So,
yeah.
To wrap up here, I think Don's got a last picture. You got a picture there, Don?
Actually gone and got the...
That's the platform.
The platform. There's the banjo end, and that sits on the top of the banjo.
Okay.
And that gives me the height.
Turn it over so we can see those legs. I want to see them. Yeah, tip it up. Yeah. Does that answer the question that was out there about how that works?
Yeah. So that one dowel goes into the banjo holder.
That goes in the banjo.
And then the other one sits on the bed.
Sits on the bed.
Got it.
Gives me the same height every time.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah.
And the other question was, I'll get them up as close as I can.
Just hold them still is the key thing. Yeah.
That's the two cutters, as you can see.
Yeah.
And that's the box of cutters.
Right.
I bought from Amazon. They're called mini cutters because they only have a 16th shank.
Huh. So that's to fit your Dremel.
That's because of the Dremel, yes.
Got it.
That roller bearing setup that you had, you made that yourself, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Yes.
Right. Okay.
On that, on the
Good
sledge.
idea. Very
Yeah,
nice idea.
When it goes in, it goes into a slot into the base of the sledge, and it's screwed down with another piece of aluminium. Once I've got it in position, I lock it down, and I've got the depth without having to move the Dremel. I just move the depth gauge.
Well, thank you, Don. That wraps that up pretty nicely. Before we wrap up here, I want to say that I would invite a lot of you fellows are consuming this like TV, just watching. I'm inviting you to participate. Get some photographs together, get some of your current work together, get your hand up next week, and we will look for talking to people who haven't shown work before, so we can get to know you and see some new things that we haven't seen before. So with that invitation, thank you all. It's been a very interesting Woodturners coffee hour as always, and I'll see you all in a week at the same time.
Wood shop. Thank God for wood.